Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris and this is my Lord of the Rings hobby. Now in today's video I'm going to show you the display board I built for Armies on Parade 2024. I wasn't actually going to do anything like this, but I looked online and luckily it popped up to say that I hadn't missed the deadline. So I gave myself a week. It was last Saturday I found out, and the competition was for this Saturday just gone. Which would have been the 28th, and I had to make sure, well, I work, so I had to make sure I actually gave it on the Friday, so I literally gave myself 7 days to get this thing done. Now, the usual sort of process, what we do for the first few minutes anyway of building this board is one, cutting out the XPS to make sure it fits, then using a load of PVA glue, quite thick PVA glue. I don't know what's going on with mine, it's like it's turned slightly, it's got more of a doughy feeling, doughy look, so I'm not 100% certain what's caused it. But yeah, I absolutely covered the base of it here, stuck it on, made sure we're all level, and then added a load of weights to make sure, of course it didn't move, but we put on as much weight as we can to keep that bond sticking quite a lot, so it's just a really good bond onto the wood and onto the XPS. Happy with the base being stuck. Didn't want to do a flat thing, I kind of wanted to make something a bit more, just a bit different. So what I did here was added a small tiny little hill. It isn't going to go up much, it's probably about an inch higher than the rest of the baseboard, and as you see I'll slowly incorporate this later on, but what I did do is put loads of glue on again to make sure it stuck really well, and then a lot of weight, and I left this one probably I think for about 5 or 6 hours during the day, just to make sure it stuck completely. And then I checked it, I made sure the corners too were full, like really like double glue, let it come out the side, and then I just like use my finger of just wiping off the excess. So once I was happy with the bond of everything, make sure it was all nice and straight, I went and got my craft knife out, and as you can see this is probably not the best way, even this was pulling it away a bit, so I probably need to look at a slightly stronger glue for future, but it did the job. And what I did is, of course, I put my weight on it once it was done, but I slowly cut away the edges, just getting like a nice flat, and it was uneven. That I didn't want this just to be like a flush thing. I kind of wanted it to look like, what was the word, like old paths have gone, you know, where people, you see where on little ridges where people have walked up, so some bits were slightly flatter than the others, and yeah, I just slowly cut away until I was happy with how it sat. Yeah, so what I did again is, I don't know if I'm using this compound right. This is just fine compound, which I got from Foxland Gaming, I think it was, quite a while ago. It's basically just plasters, just very fine plaster. So I added a load of water, got it all mixed up, and then I just covered it everywhere along that crease, and then built up slowly. I'll start off quite rough, just filling as much as I can, and then at the end of it I just use my fingers and just slowly smooth it off again with my hands, just getting rid of all those creases, making sure any of the uneven cuttings are actually filled fully, because I don't mind a bit of jagged, but I don't want it too much like look big divots. So again, I left this I think overnight again, so I'm probably on to day 2 here. So I let that fully dry, the compound, and then I just literally got a PVA black, watered it down a bit, and I just covered it head to toe, and I did like 2 or 3 coats I think of this, maybe 2 of this, and this took even like another 6 hours for that to dry, because maybe I did it a little bit too wet. But yeah, covered the complete board, the front and back. I just realised the angle's really bad for this, so I do apologise, but yeah. Now to be fair, I probably could have skipped this next step. It didn't work out as well as I thought. I tried to do a nice sea front, as you can guess now, so what I'm doing here is a beach front, so a sea colour, sea, beach, and then rocky terrain, as you'll see later on in the video. I'm not gonna lie, this might have been wasted. The effects I did get, which I'll go through later on, turned it a really weird blue, so all this different colouring and trying to blend the lighter colours, blues into each other to make it more of a sea colour, was kind of pointless sadly, so I won't talk too much about it, but just I'm showing you the mistake I made. Now once I was happy with that, the beach and dry and how it looked, I know there's a bit of black underneath, but I kind of wanted that sort of darkish lightish colour. It's hard to explain, it just looked nice when you actually take a step back and see it. It looked like a very flowing colour transition from blue. Now this is where I messed up again, because it was such short notice and how I wanted to do it. I used AK Interactive beach sand. No idea how to use it. I thought it was quite an easy thing. turns out using it on quite a big scale was a problem. Especially for me, I probably don't have the right tools. I probably needed like a plasterer's a trowel, I think they call it, and use one of those. But again, I'm showing you this completely changes again. It looks really nice when it's dry, it just didn't look what I wanted it to look like in the end, so I had to kind of go over that later on. So this is me fixing it. What I did, let it completely dry, PVA glue as usual. As you can see, I also put like a little island in. I also spilt a bit onto the sea, which was a pain again, because that was actually very difficult to try and cover up for some reason. Whenever I painted over it, it didn't work. So I had to reassess everything. Luckily it worked out in the end. I think by the end of it, I think you'll agree, it looks really cool. But yeah, wasn't happy with the sand. I wanted like a little Ford. Again, I'll explain a bit of how I wanted this thing to finish. But yeah, so gluing PVA glue as usual, and then I got fine sand, which was probably a little bit too fine if I'm honest with you, but again, learning curve. Now I'm not gonna lie, I really did mess up here. This angle's terrible, but this was me placing rocks down, little cutouts of the XPS foam to make a good looking road. As you can see here, this is me actually painting it. So the rocks I did off camera, that was something in me trial and error. But yeah, XPS foam, which I used for the bottom layer, the first layer I did before, I just cut those into nice little rocks, got my nice little tin foil, rolled that over, and now all I'm doing is adding Mechanica Standard Grey. So I'll use the grey, Mechanica Standard Grey, and then to do rocks, I've done it loads of times, loads of videos on YouTube for it, but it was literally Mechanica Standard, wash over with Null Oil, brighten up with a light grey, and then I did a stone grey over that. Terminus stone, I think it's called. Really good dry paint. I'm going to call it a dry paint from Games Workshop. It just works perfect. I think it brings a lot of stone to life, so if you ever get that and you're struggling, buy that paint, and honestly it transforms your rocks loads. Now sadly, one thing I forgot to record was me doing the water effect. As you can see, it leans over, you can see the dry marks, which I said I didn't like. So this is a standard water effect from AK Interactive. I think it's called Still Water, and all I did there was put it all on. Got to ignore the state of the room. Put it all on and let that dry. That took nearly 12 hours to nearly 24 hours. I think it was a full day of drying. But again, it was one of those things. This is a big learning curve. I started to get a bit nervous towards this bit, stage 2, because I was like, I'm going to run out. So once that had dried, I looked at this. This was what we call, I think this is another water effect, and I got the Atlantic Blue. And basically what you do here is you add a load on. I put too little on first, and then I put too much on. It's a really hard thing of me getting the right balance, and I think this is why it transformed the water to how it was, which is actually worked out well for me, because I didn't realise the stains had been that bad. And then yeah, so this is me applying it, and then what you do as it's drying, all you do then is get a straw, and then you blow into it to make ripples. Again, this is my fault. I weren't too sure how I wanted it to do, because I wanted this to be a river and a sea hitting each other. So I blew and gave it a load of different currents, which was probably not right in the long run. I should have just done a beachfront, so it's just being blown all into the sand. But again, this was another learning curve, and it looks really good when it's done. The process of how I wanted it doing and how I did it probably took me longer to think, but this is my own fault because I was rushing it to get it done for a certain time. So while that was drying, this is where I luckily managed to move over to getting the top done. The rocks what I put down before were just placed so I can get a rough idea how I wanted them. So now this is me going back. I don't know what the hell's gone on with the PVA glue. It's gone, it's turned, it still glues, it'll do. So I covered this completely with PVA glue. This is the top bit. As you can see, you've got a nice bit of road, and that road is meant to represent the old road. If you are a Lord of the Rings fan, you might know from Farharad all the way up, there's a road. It's called the Great Road, went all the way to Minas Tirith. I might be wrong with that bit, that it goes further than Minas Tirith, but I'm sure it did. The whole point is like one long motorway, I guess, or highway, depending where you're from, all connected from one point all the way to the other point. So yeah, this is meant to be the breaking of that as we go into the seafront, and this is us showing the fords. So as I slowly applied this all the way around, you then wanted to look at the beach, and I wanted to use the beach in a different way, slash sandy area. Let's call it the beach for the sake of it. Now, I wasn't actually happy with how it looked completely at this point, and probably all the way through it. I was really not so much nervous. When I had an idea on how I envisioned it, it wasn't like this. So I kept going back to it and thinking how I can change it. So once I replaced all the rocks, I started putting rocks and moving the sandy bit between the sand and also the rocky bit, the coarse sand, and trying to mix those two in together. So once the water had dried, I left that again before doing any of the finishing touches. I looked at adding some flock, and this was green flock, and it was a coarse and then very fine, and it was two different colours. I can't remember exactly which one it was. It was like a summer or winter one, but again, this was just added sparse around. I wanted a bit of greenery because just having rocks on rocks didn't look as good. So yeah, I added a load of greenery there, not too much. I didn't want to fill it. It was just sparse around and just getting like a general flow to it. Some of it ended up on the rocks, which was really cool, so it looks like moss. And yeah, it just, that sort of transition made it all stand up. Now once I was actually happy with that, I wasn't happy with the beach again. So again, I went back to the beach, and then as I added fine sand onto it before, it just didn't look right. So my partner gave me an idea and said to mix them to have a better transition. So what I did, I put 50-50 in a pot, mixed it together as best I can, added it on. It still comes up quite white because that some reason the fine sand, of course, there's more of it, I don't know, but the colouring is so pure it seems to show through a lot. So again, drenched it, and I did this probably about 3 or 4 different times until I was happy with. So now I was on to the final stretch, and I was really happy how they looked. I liked the transition between the beach. I liked the fact it was slightly darker and then onto lighter. I think it actually transferred a lot better, but then I needed greenery. And for most of my miniatures, what I've done in this sort of coarse sand and what I call like the Gondor plain, so it's not too green like a Rohan, it's kind of like very rocky sort of feeling. I added a load of flowers, and these flowers like the Gondor flower, I call them the flowers of Gondor for the sake of it. And I added these small ones, some bigger, some little ones, and I just spread those out. And I also added different sort of ones like dead grass, wild grass, and just little tufts all the way around, making it all match up, and it fits really well with also the models. Okay, so after everything was dry, I was happy with the sand. It was the best I could do for the time I had. I re-soaked it again and added isopropyl alcohol, and I did that over the whole thing. If I haven't mentioned it, make sure you do. Gets all the rocks. It's like cement now. I think after when I whacked it a couple of times, only a little bit came off. So my last step and journey for this board was literally adding AKA Interactive white water foam. And it's basically like a white it is like a paint, but it's more of a sponge. It's really like a mousse. That's probably the best way to like a mousse texture. And I just prodded that all around the coast, and I added a couple of waves on. As you can see, the currents probably aren't great for it, and to explain it as a beach slash thingy, but if you know Lord of the Rings, it's the Anduin River hits into the Bay of Belfast, I think it is Belfast. Not too sure how to pronounce it. I think that's right. I can't remember the map off the top of my head. And basically, on that is where the fords are. And over the years, Harad have entered it. Far Harad and Harad have actually came over there. And there's been a lot of skirmishes. Some they've mentioned, some they haven't. So that was my homage to that. And as you'll see, the army I picked, which are the fiefdoms, and I've made them match really well. And hopefully, you guys will agree. It looks really cool once it had finished. So yeah, after spending 7 days and finishing this on Friday night, taking it in just before he closed, which is really good because he waited for me to make sure I could do it. This is the board finally done. I hope you enjoyed the video. I do apologise if I skipped a bit or some bits aren't clear, but please let me know in the comments. If you do like it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe. It's free. So yeah, here's the grand reveal all done. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and bye for now.